Welcome to Brain Wellness, the podcast. I'm your host, Mandy NP. What started as all things related to brain health and wellness has morphed into largely brain injury health and wellness, with occasional other neurological topics. My mission remains the same, to help you on the path to a healthier brain. So, without further ado, let's get into the show. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Brain Wellness, the podcast. My guest today is Vance Mattzela. He is an Alaskan-born traveling millwright that was in a massive motorcycle accident back in 2017 in Florida, which broke his body and his brain. He moved to Michigan in 2020 in order to be closer to family and get treatment for his back and his TBI, and started B4B in 2023 in order to bring better visibility to TBI among bikers and the general public. So excited to have you here today. Thanks for joining me, Vance.
You're welcome.
So first off, I always like to ask my guests, like, where did you come from with all of this? Now, we gave some of it in your intro, but feel free to share as much about your story. Kind of how did you get to where you are now?
Well, it all started because somebody parked in front of me in a intersection, and I flew 60 feet and bounced 100. And I didn't have a helmet on. And then the next 4 years was a combination of people telling me there's nothing wrong with my brain. The constant headaches, the anger issues, the this, the that, and everybody saying, well, neuropsychologists, well, there's something wrong with you, but we don't know what. And all of this, and then old doctors saying, well, you just have a concussion, get over it and move on. So we finally got to a psychiatrist who helped me with my sleep, and he's like, no, you have a TBI. And then my neurosurgeon said, no, you have a TBI. And then I asked my neurosurgeon, who's pretty smart on this stuff, I said, where do I go to get treatment? He says, not here. And when we were able, we moved up to Michigan. I have family here. There's also excellent resources for TBIs in the state of Michigan. They're one of the leaders of, research at the University of Michigan, this, that, the other. So, and then I got in with Brian Weinstein, if you know who he is. He's pretty well known around here for, he's expanding the telehealth TBI, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So but I got in with him, finally got a diagnosis, finally got treatment, and then got a cocktail of medicines that I take every day, and we just keep adjusting them after 5 years every 2 months. And yeah, so in 2003, I started Brains for Bikers because in the blue collar arena, a TBI is called a headache. It's in the industrial world, the CFR manual is the safety manual that we all live by. TBI is not listed in it. You know what I mean? It's among the blue collar, TBI is not a thing. You go to the white collar, they're bringing it more to the forefront now. But in the blue collar arena, there's very little push to get that through. So I'm a stubborn individual, so I decided to push back on people that say it's just a headache and not take it seriously from now on.
Yeah. So tell me more about Brains for Biker. Yeah, Brains for Bikers. Yes.
It's a nonprofit that is for awareness of TBIs focused on the blue collar, and we're hoping to we're going to donate helmets to whoever wants one, just as get the TBI out there, nationwide. Go to the biker rallies, do this, do that, have trailers that travel. And then the other part of it, which is the part I want more than anything, is a database of resources and specialists for TBIs across the nation, so that all the stories that I hear when I connect with people who have had TBIs, it's years, not weeks. And then it's an accident. They get to the right provider, and that says, by the way, you have a TBI. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yep. And being in healthcare, I have a lot of patients that come in, and it's been years that they've been living with their symptoms, and they do often accidentally find me, or they have somebody refer me from somebody else that they've seen then, and they haven't gotten the care that they need up to that point.
Yeah. Well, since I've been on LinkedIn, I've connected with a lot of doctors and a lot of nurses and a lot of TBI specialists and researchers, and I kind of peek in on some group chats and stuff like that. It's all the same story, decades of, or just I talked to one guy, Mark McNeese. He's fabulous man there in Massachusetts, not recently, and his TBI led him to start going after the homeless people and seeing out of 350 homeless, 319 of them had a TBI history. And he focuses on the addiction, the self-medicating, this, that. But all the people who have had traumatic brain injuries that are in the traumatic brain injury field feel that it is their mission to fix it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's kind of me also. I had a TBI myself back in 2023 from a car accident, and I I didn't do strictly concussion before my accident, but now this is what I do day in and day out.
Yeah, it's it's kind of like we want to prevent the suffering for other people. I've helped a few bikers just by telling them, "Hey, look, personality changes, the constant headaches, the confusion on a day-to-day basis, the cloudy mind after just minor accidents or, falling off your bike or whatever, laying down your bike by accident." And I've helped a couple guys get help and search for the right kind of help. It's not, the technology is there and it's all there. We have the ability to treat people correctly. But it's not taught in medical profession. It's taught by researchers, which is totally bass backwards.
Pretty much, yeah. I was looking this up the other day, and I think it was a total of about 2.5 hours that physicians get in it for education in medical school related to concussions. If they specialize in neurology, they might get a little bit more, but again, not all neurologists are concussion specialists either. I worked in neurology for 12 years before my accident. I wasn't a concussion specialist. I did all the things that school taught me,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're now coming out with like Mark that it's a checklist. It's yes or no questions for concussion background. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? It's like or signs and symptoms of concussions. They have forms that are just yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, yes, no, and it's like the depression sheet. They
Mhm.
didn't do crap for depression for decades, and then all of a sudden we got to do depression. And then now we need to do, hey, TBI. It is the most common injury and the least treated. That
20 years ago, they taught us that everybody got better within 3 to 4 weeks, and those that didn't either had severe injuries or they got secondary gain from still saying that they had symptoms. So a lot of providers still feel that way, unfortunately. And we now know in the last 4 or 5 years, all the research has been saying that almost up to half of people that even have what we call a mild TBI, a concussion, still have symptoms well beyond a year. So we know now, but we haven't all been re-educated.
Yes, yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. And I'm learning more about what's out there since I started Brains for Bikers. I've connected with people like you, with Mark. I'm going to talk to the assistant director of Ohio State University, I can't remember his name, Kendar something. I did suffer a massive concussion when I was a kid. I broke my jaw on a bike, and I had a concussion. And then it was after that I had rage episodes, and they were probably linked to that. But it wasn't until I started talking to Mark that, the history of concussions. Well, I probably had a dozen throughout my life, but it was this last one that really sent me over the edge. I am not the same person at all. I watched a talk a lady gave called Version 2.0. Do you know the one?
Yeah, I call myself Mandy 2.0 for the same reason.
Okay, okay. Well, I have a different theory than version 2.0, and that's 2 point everything, because you have to literally become a new person every day in order to survive your TBI. So version 2.0 isn't good enough. I was going to actually write a paper. Version 2.0 isn't good enough because we struggle every day. Every time you get up, you struggle with it. If you have, constant symptoms day to day, and you've had that massive traumatic brain injury, you have to fight every day. And it's a new battle, like we were talking before. I'm having one of those foggy, I'm peopled out, I call it.
Yeah. Yep.
But then again, because I try to ignore that feeling and push through, and now we're having a better conversation than we could have had. But the version 2.0 really set me off on a journey of self-discovery. That talk, I can't remember the lady's name, phenomenal talk, and
Yeah,
she's,
I'm drawing a blank too.
yeah, but you know who it is,
Yeah.
and that's the funny part.
Yeah.
So I had to reinvent myself. And then because I have chronic pain along with the TBI, it makes the TBI worse, some of the symptoms worse, depending on how much pain I have. So,
Yep.
the nervous system going into protection mode on it because of the pain, and then everything compounding in the brain that's already there. It's a fight, but is the fight worth it? This is the question. And you're a parent. The fight is not only worth it, but you have to do it for your children. They have to see you push through and prepare them for, life happens, but we got to go push. We got to push through. We got to do all that.
Yeah. Teach them some resilience.
Yeah, exactly. And I have a theory. It's called the 5% rule. Every time I go to a new doctor, we change my medications or whatever, you got to make me 5% better, or not 50% better, not 100% better, but 5% better. And every 5% is compounded. So 5%, 5%, 5%, 5%. And so, I mean, it's that to me, little steps, little wins are better than getting disappointed during big losses.
Yeah. Yeah. I like that idea, actually. Do you still ride a motorcycle?
I would if I could lift one up. It's a safety thing. If you can't lift it up, you shouldn't be riding.
Yeah.
So I'm
Yeah.
looking at more of a sidecar when I can afford it. But I have 4 kids.
Yeah.
I can't afford nothing.
Isn't that the truth? So, next question then. I have a lot of patients who've been in accidents with their motorcycles and they still refuse to wear the helmets. When you go to the rallies and you go talk to people, do you get pushback from other bikers on that as well?
Sam, I talked to one gentleman who's part of Bikers Down. He's a trainer for Bikers Down, which is they teach bikers how to treat traumatic victims of motorcycle accidents. So if you're involved or somebody else is involved, instant care, basically first aid and trauma response and stuff like that. And I tried to talk to the lady who is in charge. I mean, not that she is wrong, but she says, well, that's not really our thing. And I'm like, but treating a traumatic brain injury victim is different than treating. I did ERT in the
Sure.
industrial world. So, if I would have known that traumatic brain injury was what it was when my patients were fighting back against me, I would have treated the whole situation 100% different. Now that I know what I know, faith is inherent.
Yeah. It's really common for people to get combative, aggressive after they've had a head injury. And I don't know that all those that work in EMS understand that part.
No, no. I mean, I got pushback from the guy who does blessing of the bikes, and I'm like, I would wear a helmet, but I don't want to stop. But Brains for Bikers, though we want to change some policies involving motorcyclists, like we want to get a motorcycle license, we want at least a 15 to 20-minute informational video on traumatic brain injury and symptoms to get your motorcycle license.
Yeah.
I mean, don't
Be
want to
informed.
change. I just want people to be informed
Yeah.
so that when things happen, they can say, hey, look, something's wrong. And people around them, if they're informed, can say, hey, look, you need to go get your head checked.
Mhm.
Because it
Mhm.
was for me to get that realization, that crash moment burned. My mother, 2 years after my accident, came down to see me, and she told me flat out, because my mother's a very blunt person and worked in EMS and all that other neat stuff for a lot of years. She said, by the way, your family's scared of you. And when I mean scared, I mean terrified. My wife was looking at apartments and had applications filled out. So, I mean, it was dead serious. And I
Yeah.
didn't really realize what I was doing, but that was my aha moment that I started looking for doctors to tell me what was wrong. And then once a couple of them said, hey, you got a TBI and it's kind of impressive, and everybody's telling me leave the state to get treatment. It wasn't until I moved to Michigan that I found out there was an inpatient facility down there in Tampa that I could have gone to.
Huh.
Had no idea, because you look up on the internet traumatic brain injury specialists, they're very hard to find. When I got up to Michigan, other than Brian Weinstein, and I read some papers that he did, is the reason we moved up to one. It helped with the move up to Michigan to be around my family.
Yeah.
But I had to get other treatment more readily because I couldn't get into Brian Weinstein right away, full patients. To get other treatment, we had to make it up. Me and my primary care had to make it up as we went.
Yep. I believe it.
And so, I mean, it was 5 years since the accident to get treatment, to get a diagnosis. And by that time, PTSD, post concussive syndrome, and the big whopper that most people get is the intermittent explosive disorder.
Yep.
And I guess it's really widely around blue collar individuals. That's what they get, and that's why we're fighting all the time, I guess.
I believe it. Yeah, it happens much more than we used to realize. We didn't know what it was, and really, until the last few years, there wasn't a lot of good research to identify it. So, good and bad, you got treatment at a good time that people were starting to really identify things, but bad thing that it had been so many years since your injury. That said, I have found it with many patients that I've seen, even a decade or so after their injury, if we start treatment, they still do see improvements.
Yes. Well, that's the wonderful thing about the different cocktails or whatever, that even
Mhm.
even just the therapeutics to get that relief, to get that anxiety down, you know what I mean?
Yep.
It's for I know for me, if I have anxiety, then my brain races, and then I will lock on to something that doesn't need to be locked onto, and I
Yep.
go at it full force. I mean, hell, I had the cops called on me for going to get a building permit, and it was all over a stupid question. You know what I mean? It just,
Yeah, something
but
set you off and you got a little hyper focused on it.
yeah, it's
Yep.
just those little things for me. But no, getting, the mesothelioma commercials.
Yeah,
I want TBI commercials. I mean, I'm dead serious.
I would love it. There's 50% of the United States walks around with some degree of history of TBI. It's you'd think that would be a response enough to kind of deem some commercials about it.
Yeah, I mean, and I looked into it. They're not that expensive.
Well, there you
If
go.
to go through the streaming services and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Not
Yep.
traditional TV, but more of the newer stuff. And that's what we're raising money for, donation of helmets, creating
Awesome.
a directory of, this is where you can go to get help. This is a
Mhm.
support, have it based on, sorry if I'm kind of random today.
That's
That's the
right.
way I am.
You're actually
Um,
doing really well.
but we want, you know, basically, if you picture a map of the United States and you click on your state, and your state comes up and it's divided into
Mm,
regions, and then you pick your region,
mhm.
and then you pick your specialist on the list on the side, and it'll highlight all the people in your region that deal with it, and do that on a
That'd
nationwide
be
level.
cool.
start with Michigan because I
Yep.
happen to live in Michigan and there's a lot of resources here.
Yep.
But just, I mean, it would be awesome to add a couple states every couple months. I mean, it takes a lot of funding. But I mean, right now we have $16 in our bank account. But we have a little
That
bitty
doesn't go very
website.
far.
No, it doesn't. We got a little website. We got a better one coming that's a lot cheaper for us to maintain. And we got some donated helmets from local biker clubs and this, that, the other. And we're just pushing forward we're looking for funding so we can get grants and this, that, the other. And you know how it goes.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just
Very cool.
it's one of their board members is actually a safety specialist. That's his job title, and he's very well known.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
we're gonna develop it's like that safety program I told you for that. I know
Yeah.
I know a couple senators and stuff here in Michigan. So go give that to them and see what they can do with it.
Yeah.
And just one day at a time, something new every day, and we get through.
Yeah. You guys are
And then
doing
when
some
you go
great
to
things.
bed, yeah. And then when you go to bed at night, you can say, "Hey, I did something."
Yes. Absolutely. What is that website if people want to come find you?
B4B, it's the number 4, B4BUSA.org.
And you sent me your Facebook link and your LinkedIn. I'll get those put in the show notes. Do you guys have any upcoming events that you're going to be at?
We are going to be at Blessing of the Bikes this spring, and we're hoping to make it to Sturgis, one way or the other.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah. Yeah. What is another piece of advice you wish that other people that had brain injury understood?
One piece of advice, other than my 2.0 and 5% rules,
Yeah.
it's not your fault.
Yeah.
That is one thing that I wish it would have stopped me from going down a rabbit hole I shouldn't have gone down mentally. Because when I found out that what I was doing to my family, it sent me down a rabbit hole that could have ended everything. Because I put that pain and suffering, I took it to heart, and I didn't realize. I didn't realize till later that I have to forgive myself for what I did, and because it's not my fault. There's a problem with my brain, but realizing it is my responsibility. Once it's my responsibility, it's my fault. But before, you know what I mean? But before
Yeah.
that,
Once you know, you got to do better. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. And I hoped for big jumps and leaps, and 20-30%, and that's how I got to the 5% rule. Because I walk into a pain specialist or a head specialist, I'm like, I need 5% better. They said, why 5%? I said, because that improves the quality of life of my family.
Yeah. No, I love that. That's a great motto to work by. Well, you guys are doing some amazing things there in Michigan. If there's anything that I can do to try to help that along, you got me as a connection now. So when it comes time to building that database, let me know.
Yeah. Well, trust me, there's my LinkedIn armada is getting bigger and bigger by the day.
Yeah.
So we're gonna do some good things, and we're gonna make sure that a lot of people don't have to suffer, even if it's just the two of us doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, keep doing what you're doing, and I wish you guys the best of luck with your funding so you can get all this going. Hope the Blessing of the Bikes goes well, and stay safe while you're out there.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right. Thanks for joining me, Vance.
Yep. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Brain Wellness, the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, I encourage you to subscribe, leave a comment, and share it so that others can benefit. Please also consider supporting the show by buying me a coffee. The link is in the show notes. You can also go to www.brainwellnesssolutions.com to catch the latest info and get links on all of the social medias there. See you next time.